Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Candidate Forum for Districts 1, 3, and 5. My name is Jane Lansing. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, but not a resident of District 1, 3, or 5, and I'm pleased to be moderating this forum. The League of Women Voters is a volunteer organization with a long history of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that is widely used by voters regardless of political beliefs. This forum is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters, Making Voters a Tradition, and Standish Erickson Neighborhood Association. The views expressed are those of the candidates and not those of the co-sponsors. Neither the League of Women Voters nor its co-sponsors endorse candidates or political party. We are holding this forum for voters to hear from the candidates to compare their ideas. This forum is being held in front of a live audience in the Minneapolis Central Library and is being live streamed to the League of Women Voters Minneapolis YouTube channel. The recording of this forum will be available in its entirety after the forum and will have closed caption available in multiple options. Thank you to MCN6 for the production and the recording of this event. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts are not to be worn in this room. No signs or literature be distributed during this event. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so that everyone can hear their responses. No photography or filming is allowed during this event. We would also ask that you hold your applause until the end of the forum so that candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your questions. And finally, please silence all electronic devices. Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board is a semi-autonomous body responsible for managing the city's parks, recreational facilities, and green spaces. It operates separately from the city of Minneapolis with its own jurisdiction and funding. The Park Board develops park policies, hires the park superintendent, and enacts ordinances governing the use of the city's parks, recreational facilities, and green spaces. All candidates on the ballot were invited to the forum, and 6 of them are with us here this evening. Here tonight are District 1 candidates Dan Engelhardt and Dan Miller, District 3 candidate Kedar Deshpande, District 5 candidates Justin Theodore Cernak, Kay Carvajal Moran, and Stephanie Musich. And we thank the candidates in advance for engaging in a respectful and civil discourse. We have timekeepers that are sitting in the front row so that each candidate has the same amount of time to respond to the questions. Following the opening statements of 1 minute, each candidate will have a minute to answer all the questions and then make a 30-second opening or closing statement. So a minute for the opening statement, a minute for each question, 30 seconds for the closing. The timekeeper will hold up a card when there is 15 seconds remaining, if you want to show them that, and a stop card when their time is up, at which point you should please just finish the sentence that you are on. We expect the forum to last about 75 minutes. Questions from the community have been submitted in advance to the League of Women Voters. During the forum, we will take written questions from the audience until 15 minutes before the end of the forum, about 7:15. And League of Women Voters and our student volunteers, thank you if you'll identify people yourself to the audience. We'll gather the questions and hand them to our facilitators and then to me. We will ask that the questions be clear, pertinent to the issues at hand within the scope of the office and made in the form of a question, not a statement. All questions are carefully reviewed, rewritten if necessary to make sure that they're directed to all candidates, forward-looking, not hostile, not of a personal nature. We look for a balance of topics that affect all of us, both locally and in the city as a whole. To get as many topics as possible, we will limit the number of questions in each category, and we may consolidate some questions of the same topic. If you feel that your question was not addressed, please follow up with the candidates after the forum. And finally, all submitted questions are the property of the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis. So let's get started. We're going to start with an opening question, and we're asking every candidate to take 1 minute to address this question, and we're just going to go down the line in the order that they're seated. And the question is, why are you running, and what is your qualification? So, candidate Cernak.
Hello, my name is Justin Theodore Cermak. I'm running for Park Board District 5. I feel like I'm running because the level of... Oh, man. Stage fright. Sorry. Can we skip me and come back next?
Sure.
Okay.
Candidate Deshpande.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. My name's Kedar Deshpande, and I'm running for the Park Board for District 3. District 3 is the most diverse district in the city, and actually one state legislator told me it's the most diverse electoral district in the whole state of Minnesota. That diversity deserves a voice that will represent it to its fullest. You might see a lot of my fellow candidates here, half are white men, and if you're at the at-large forum, half there are also white men. That's great, but the last time I checked, the city doesn't consist of 50% white men. We need more diverse voices. We need people to listen, particularly immigrants in this day and age who don't feel safe interacting with government. I'm a friendly face, a friendly person who's going to listen because I'm the child of immigrants, I speak Spanish, and I'm learning Somali. I also serve on the board of Whittier Alliance, and I've been volunteering with the East Phillips Neighborhood Institute. I've been out in the field, I work with people, and I'm here to serve. Thank you.
Okay, candidate Engelhardt.
Hey everybody, Dan Engelhardt, he, him pronouns, running for District 1, and want to emphasize Engelhardt because there are two Dans running for District 1. I'm running because I believe in this moment or long emergency, we need strong leaders at every level of government. And I think I'm uniquely qualified to lead in this moment. I've been an organizer since 2001. I'm 48 years old. And once I realized we'd all been lied to about bootstraps and opportunity, I set out to make a difference. Started out as an environmental organizer, been a union organizer. I work for MAPE representing state employees. I sit down with commissioners of state agencies and labor relations directors on a regular basis and get things done. I was on a board called AVCAC, the Above the Falls Community Advisory Committee, for many years, ultimately becoming a co-chair. That was heavy on the river and implementing the Above the Falls and River First plan, so I'm intimately aware of what the Park Board does and what needs to happen. And lastly, I can really help with the labor relations problem as evidenced by the 22-day-long strike last summer. So I'm asking for your support and to get out and volunteer and vote for me. Thank you.
Candidate Miller.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for this forum and for the audience here for attending. My name is Dan Miller, and I'm seeking to be the next Park Board District 1 Commissioner. I grew up on the Iron Range playing on red ore dumps. We didn't have parks. We had the outdoors. Our faces, hands, and jeans were red stained, still are, and it didn't wash off. I can never take Minneapolis Parks for granted. I'm running because we have a Grand Rounds to connect, a 140-year missing link. I know this is possible because I've spent many years leading committees, such as the Great Northern Greenway, which has improved our urban infrastructure. I want to increase access to youth programming, specifically in Northeast, Southeast, and North, which have been underserved for decades. And given the childcare crisis, I believe the parks have an essential role to play in supporting and expanding affordable childcare. Thank you.
Candidate Moran.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum and also make voting a tradition and creating this educational space for neighbors and community to learn about their local elections. My name is Kate Carvajal Moran. My pronouns are ella, she, and hers. I am a progressive, first-generation Mexican-American that was raised by District 5, and I am a passionate community advocate for creating a park system that works for all of us. Someone that was raised by the parks and who grew up, I am personally invested in District 5. I was encouraged by community to run for office as they saw my passion for wanting to see more youth investments and also wanting to see investments in our urban green spaces. And as a youth worker and mentor, it's super important that we set examples for our future generations in office, and so and showcase that they can also be in leadership positions. Thank you.
Candidate Musich.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Musich. I'm your incumbent 5th District Park Commissioner, and I'm seeking re-election to continue serving the residents of our district. This work brings me joy, and I bring deep experience, curiosity, and a collaborative spirit to the board. I work to understand the complexity of the issues we face and partner with my colleagues and park staff to ensure that our park spaces are safe, clean, and welcoming for all. Professionally, I bring over 11 years of experience as your district commissioner, over 3 decades of customer service experience, 23 years in accounting and finance, 16 years of environmental stewardship through the Friends of Lake Nokomis, and 6 years in project management. I'm also a retired University of Minnesota trained master gardener, and as a parent, I've raised my child in our parks, and I've loved seeing him build strong friendships and a lifelong love of nature through sports and recreation across the city.
Candidate Cernak.
Thank you. I'd like to try that again. All right. My name is Justin Theodore Cermak. I'm running for District 5. The reason I'm getting into this is because of the neglect that I see in the parks. Basically, it all started out with a tree at the end of my driveway. It was this beautiful mugo pine, and it was just absolutely covered in just kind of invasive vines. And I just looked at that bush every single day, and the park board would come by and they never really fix it. And it just became kind of systematic of what I saw in the park system. You know, if you go down to Minneapolis Falls, the south side stairs are still collapsed. You know, in 2010, the flood washed out part of the path. That is still not fixed. So that's kind of why I'm here. And also, as a Minneapolis, homeowner, I want to make sure that everybody is taken care of, for. Our tax dollars are being looked after in a very responsible manner. The current park board has raised taxes the last 2 years, and they have a new tax levy on the books. Thank you very much.
We are now going to move to the questions from the live audience and those submitted in advance. These also have 1 minute to answer. We're going to begin with candidate Deshpande for this question. What do you see as the most important role the park system plays in the life of Minneapolis, and how would you strengthen that role or alter it?
The parks in Minneapolis are the reason why a lot of people live in this city. They're the connective tissue that brings us together. I've seen that and felt that firsthand because I am in Whittier Alliance every single day seeing kids tell me that, seeing parents tell me that, seeing the teachers at Whittier Elementary tell me that. I know it and I feel it. And so the way to strengthen it is to celebrate it. I want to see more programming, more fun, more kids enjoying our parks and our spaces, more adults having nighttime activities to go to. I know a lot of parents and neighbors who, they do dance classes. They do all sorts of educational activities at night, and they feel like it's an escape. We need to keep promoting those activities. We need to tie our schools and our parks more closely together, and that's the way that we're going to celebrate and keep them growing.
Candidate Miller.
Kedar, that was fantastic. Thank you. Yes, our parks are our green area. It's our source. In Northeast and Southeast, it's the river. It's connecting to our body of water, and being able to have a place to meet, to get out of our house, to be able to enjoy life. Thank you.
Candidate Cernak.
Can you repeat the question again really quick?
Yes. What do you see as the most important role the park system plays in the life of Minneapolis? How would you strengthen that role or alter it?
Well, I think the parks really draw us all together as people. Living down by Minnehaha Falls, it is the #1 park. Everybody from all around the world come down and enjoy our city. They come in and they're just wow, this is so nice. This is such a beautiful little falls, and I think that can really bring us all together. I think that one thing that's holding us back is the quality of our water. Our water quality in our lakes is just terrible. We close beaches on a regular basis. I won't even let my dog swim in those waters because they're just so polluted. And we really need to get our lakes as clean as possible because we are the city of lakes. Thank you.
Candidate Musich.
Okay. I see the parks, the most important role that the parks play in our city is being what keeps people here. There are many challenges that our city is facing right now that really make people question, is Minneapolis where I want to spend my life? Is it where I want to invest? Is it where I want to raise my kids? And the thing that keeps them here is their love of our park system. When you go out to the suburbs, they have parks. They have a handful of parks. We have hundreds of parks here in Minneapolis. Every person in the city, nearly every person in the city, lives within 10 minutes of a park by foot. We are working at land acquisition along the riverfront and within areas that are underserved to ensure that that can be true for every single person that lives in our city. I'm proud of the work that we've been doing to make that the reality for residents, and I really look forward to continuing to find ways to make our parks more sustainable for the long term.
Candidate Moran.
Yeah, I want to start off by saying two things. So I'm a youth worker, and the second thing is that the park board has the 5th largest budget in Minnesota, $155 million. Right now that we're doing door knock, it's really sad to know that neighbors do not know what the park board is, what the responsibilities are, and so the park board has a huge responsibility of maintaining our youth. The city has their role, the county. And I think the parks has such a beautiful role in trying to maintain our youth. There's so much that is going on in the world, and having access to green spaces, having access for our youth to go after school is such a blessing. And we in Minneapolis have such a beautiful park system that we have 10 minutes of walking distance. The one thing that I would love the park board to do, and for fellow commissioners, is to continue engaging community. As mentioned, a lot of folks do not know what the park board is, and I think that we need to engage community members thank you.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Yeah, as others have said, our parks and our programming, but really our parks and our green space, we're talking about, is a quarter of our city's land and is a key part of our identity and what we're proud of as Minneapolis, often the #1 park system in the nation. And that's great. And it was visionaries that set it up, and the park board's responsible for keeping that going. And there's constant threats to that. So we have to, keep the independent nature of the park board, and it's truly unique in a governing structure. It's our third space. We hear a lot about third space, and we need places to gather and be in community that aren't bars, and a healthy space. So these are places to gather. I can think of during the uprising when everything was wild around Lake Street and gathering in Powderhorn Park. That's a space to gather like that. Having programming that meets all ages, identities, and abilities, and really deeply listening to find out what is keeping people away or what they want to see. So thank you.
Our next question is in the area of youth programming and services. Candidate Deshpande, you will be the first to answer, and the question is, what is your top priority for engaging and supporting youth and family programs in our parks, and how would you ensure that all communities, including those who have been marginalized and underserved, had access to these programs?
Youth programming is one of the biggest reasons why I'm running. And I see that every day in my own neighborhood. I see it every single day when I'm in Phillips, when I'm in Ventura Village, and Powderhorn, Corcoran, Seward. Ultimately, I feel like, one, we need to have good pricing, and I know we already have a sliding scale fee system, but I would love to be able to provide even more that's just free. That's really important in my district in particular, where a lot of people just don't have the funds to be able to spend and be in public spaces. But the park should always be free, and there should always be programming available for free. Tying up with the schools, I think we can combine and save on budget issues. And then lastly, we need to have multilingual support. And in my district, Somali and Spanish are two of the largest languages, and we can't forget that. And I don't just mean informal linguistic support. I mean really great translations and being able to make sure that somebody's on site at all times, being able to interact with people who don't speak English.
Candidate Moran.
Yes, can I request for the question to be repeated?
Certainly. What is your top priority for engaging and supporting youth and family programs in our parks? And how would you ensure that communities, including those who have been marginalized and underserved, have access to these programs?
Yeah, so I would love to have a conversation with anybody on youth work. I am a really, really passionate youth worker. I had the opportunity to work with young people, middle schoolers, high schoolers. So I think we have to address the priorities of the previous park board. There were 3 youth positions where funding was allocated to go to other priorities at the park, and so just let's start there. It's super important that we are engaging our young people. Again, what I said previously, I think that as commissioners, we have to be accessible to our young people. So how are we going to go out of our way and engage young people by going into high schools, by going to the parks, and making sure that they're included, whether that's the design process, whether that's programming, and then continue building a relationship with the Minneapolis Public Schools. I was in a board meeting, and it seems that they're only meeting once a year, and so those relationships got to continue. We need to prioritize our young people and making sure that there's staff that cares for our young people. So thank you.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Yeah, I was a licensed elementary and middle school teacher. I am endorsed by the Minneapolis Federation of Educators, and with my job at MAPE, I work with the Minnesota Department of Education. I represent the Department of Education. I have a close relationship with the state's authorized rep for full-service community schools. There are 3 parks and 3 schools participating in that, and we need to, really make sure they got everything they need to model the best, but expand that once we got that shored up. Full-service community schools, it's a really important model. And it can address, like we hear about childcare and that sort of thing. I was an athlete, still consider myself an athlete. So athletics are important in youth programming, but also, for people that maybe athletics aren't their thing, art, different things like that, that are gonna engage people. I'm an organizer, so speaking in the I is different for me. What do community leaders want? Listening to the kids, treating them like full humans just because they're younger. Sometimes we kind of look down on them because of their age, and they're human beings with opinions too. So let's go.
Candidate Miller.
Well, I think you start by listening. All parks are unique. The people around them are unique, and you start listening. You start by listening to the youth. You start by listening to parents. You start listening to coaches, and you hopefully have a park director there. Some of our recreation centers don't have a park center, and they close. They close early. I was just down at Lexington Park, where you have a recreation center that is now closed at 8 instead of 9 o'clock. That's a big deal for that community. So I was approached by people saying, we really need to change this because this is our safe place. This is our youth center. So that's where I would begin.
Candidate Cernak.
Yes, I think there's a real opportunity for the Parks Board and the schools to kind of combine into, sports programs. Like, I've talked with a lot of parents, and what they want to see is, better fields for their kids in Minneapolis, so they don't have to drive out to the suburbs. It'd be nice if our kids stayed home, played on our fields, and we had better fields for them. Thank you.
Candidate Musich.
In my time on the board, I've helped expand access to programs for youth via a number of methods. One is the youth investment that we secured at the previous board that has not yet been fully funded. You've heard several people this evening talk about 3 positions that were not filled in this last budget, and that's largely due to the fact that we have not fully received the funding promised to us. We will in 2027. And I look forward to having those 3 positions come online at that time. We also have been listening to kids. So when they told us, hey, we don't all play sports. We're not all super excited to do arts and crafts, but we want to be creative. Can you create places for us to do that? We created Spark Studios. These are throughout the entire city. There's one in every park commissioner district. And this gives kids an opportunity to engage in pursuits outside of just sitting in their bedroom by themselves. They get to meet other kids that have similar interests, and it's not just sports activities. So in talking with kids, that's how we're going to figure out what types of programs we should be offering to help make sure that they've got what they need to be active and engaged with their colleagues.
Our next question is in the area of environmental stewardship. How would you protect the natural environment and wildlife throughout the Minneapolis Park system and ensure that all communities have equal access to nature in Minneapolis Parks? And this came from the community. And we're going to start with candidate Musich again.
All right, so this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I did start a nonprofit stewardship group with my neighbors to take care of the park near us because we saw what a deficiency in staffing the park had. In my time on the park board, we've expanded our natural resources team from 1 person to 3 full-time staff to an additional 4 seasonal staff. I would really like to see us also start spinning up actual crews that work under the direction of those folks to help supplement the work that our stewardship groups are doing. Because while they're doing really important work, they can't do everything. They're not allowed to use power tools. They're not allowed to apply herbicides. They're not allowed to take down large invasive trees. So we really need people that are trained and able to do this work. And so I'd love to see that I'd love to be able to build on what we've started to do in this area. I'd also like to see us bring someone on that their full-time job is helping mitigate bad interactions between humans and our wild relatives here on the land so that people are not the reason that a creature doesn't get an opportunity to exist in our city.
Candidate Moran.
Yeah, so many of the initiatives that the park board has initiated has been thanks to community advocacy groups or community stewards groups. And so I want to first give a huge shout out to Friends of Lake Hiawatha, Parks and Power. And so I want to continue working alongside those community steward groups to see where, because they know how to best challenge climate change and best know how to be good relatives to the, as you were saying, like, sorry. So I would want to continue working alongside those stewards, and then, sorry. Thank you.
Candidate Miller.
I support a lot of what the park board has been doing, and what I see in Northeast Minneapolis in District 1 is we have a lot of industry up there. We've got a heat index issue, and it's continuing to get worse. And I will tell you, I see a lot of trees being planted both on boulevards and in our parks. I'm really impressed by that. Another huge issue with stormwater. Again, we have a lot of industrial area, and we've got flooding going on, and we're going through the process of the infrastructure to be able to change that so it's cleaner going into the river, and we're trying to get at solar, and so that's it.
Candidate Cernak.
I think the park board really has quite an opportunity to I'd like to see the park board kind of move away from like a 1950s style design where it's like all lawns and, like it's very manicured. There should be more like wilderness areas. Definitely, I think that we could share the community with, our animal brothers. Hopefully, beavers probably are not going to be able to work very well. They're kind of destructive and would flood out most of the city, but that's okay. Water quality is a huge, huge issue. Like if you've stepped into any of the lakes, obviously I've already said that a lot of them are closed. Like most kids don't want to go swimming in, Minnehaha Creek for obvious reasons that it's not super clean and, it's not real great. And I think we really have an opportunity to clean up the water before it gets into our lakes and before it gets into our streams. Thank you.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Yeah, our parks have a quarter of our city's land, and a quarter of that land is our what's called natural areas. And there's just not enough staff. We just heard we moved from 1 to 3, and that's not enough. There's no ecologist or wildlife expert on staff. So let's increase the staff to be able to help. And then there are excellent volunteers out there that are so deeply committed. One of my favorite experiences on this campaign is meeting with the folks around Eloise Butler and just learning about how dedicated they are and the amazing ability they've been able to control some of the areas with buckthorn. It's certainly not these feel-good, corporate-funded one-time events that effectively do nothing or even make the buckthorn problem worse. We need dedicated, committed volunteers that are supported by staff. And on that note, probably the most effective thing the park board could do to combat climate change is to make sure those peat bogs don't die out around Eloise Butler. That would release a massive amount of carbon and create even a further climate crisis. So let's go.
Candidate Deshpande.
The first sentence of the park board mission is about protecting green spaces and wildlife. So that's really what we're here to do. One thing that I'm focused on, and my prior career for the last 20 years, has been around helping animals. So wildlife corridors, pollinator corridors, those are going to be top of mind for me, and creating porous surfaces to make sure that we have clean water and also clean air. All of that is going to help wildlife and help us for that matter too. The other thing I want to focus on is creating more community gardens and mitigating invasive species. So like Dan Engelhardt, I also went to clear buckthorn at Eloise Butler, and it was eye-opening. And it's also a looming crisis that we're facing. Invasive species are going to be costly and are going to be extremely disruptive. They already are. And so we need to make sure that we do have naturalist staff and that we're supporting the volunteers who do the work to keep our green areas green and make our spaces natural and whole the way they were in the past.
Thank you. We now have a question from our audience. Candidate Cernak, you're going to be the first one to answer this one. What is your position on phasing out the use of pesticides in the parks and using organic landscaping instead?
Pesticides are one of the worst things that are going on in our world. Neonicotinoids are absolutely destroying the bottom of the food chain, and I think that as much as we can possibly get pesticides out of the park, I mean, except for removing hornets' nests from buildings, which kind of has to be done, but I mean, if there's a more natural way, let's go ahead and do that. But as far as pesticides go, there's probably not a worse thing for all of us on the planet and as a species. Thank you.
Candidate Deshpande.
I think the integrated pest management program that the park board established maybe a few years back is a great start and a great basis to reduce the amount of pesticides that are being used. I'm a little hesitant and skeptical on organic alternatives. The term organic doesn't necessarily mean it's good. I think it's cheap marketing, quite frankly. So I do want to reduce the use of pesticides, but I want to make sure that we're doing it in the right way and that there's other biological or mechanical controls that we can place to do things in a more natural way as opposed to quote-unquote organic. The other thing I really want to emphasize is that some of these are going to be used, or pesticides in the case of invasive species. And I think there is a trade-off to be made and some benefits to be made in using very limited use of pesticides, but not a great use.
Candidate Musich.
In my time on the park board, we've addressed modifying the integrated pest management policy a number of times. And we did at one point extensively study the use of organics in lieu of synthetic pesticides, largely when we're talking about herbicides. And what we found was that in the areas where we piloted solely using organic control methods, we were actually having to apply far more frequently and far larger amounts of those products to achieve the same outcome as a more limited application of something that wouldn't have been labeled organic. So that means we're going to have to shut down areas of the park for longer periods. We're going to have to expose the animals that call these places home to more chemical interventions more frequently. So I think there does need to be a balance. And what the integrated pest management plan calls for is try everything else. If that fails, then look at considering herbicides. And that, I think, is a great approach in that you use them infrequently and only when everything else has failed.
Candidate Moran.
Yeah, I want to be transparent. I am not super knowledgeable, but that being said, I'm excited and I'm willing to learn more about this issue. I know that in conversations with neighbors, they have brought pesticides and so the harmful effects of them. Again, I'm not the most knowledgeable, but I'm excited to work with folks like Kedar and to continue exploring this, specifically if there is difference between organic, natural, and ultimately what's better for for our parks users. So I would love to explore more on this. Thank you.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Generally opposed to pesticides. I think the question is specific to pesticides, so I'll speak to pesticides. I mean, I think mosquitoes, nobody likes those, right? But we know when the dragonflies come out, all of a sudden there's a lot less mosquitoes, and so in bats, and so making sure we have a fully supported ecosystem that kind of handles these things. One thing can take over another. The integrated pest management program of trying everything else first, yeah, let's do that, and just avoid pesticides in general. They can be very harmful to our pollinators. We have a threat to our monarchs and so many other pollinators. So I'm opposed to pesticides in general. Thanks.
Candidate Miller.
I support the integrated pest management program, and as a commissioner, if I become a commissioner, of course, I'll learn a lot more being on the inside, and we'll take it from there.
Now we're going to move to a question on budget funding priorities. This first question will go to candidate Deshpande. And what are the new or alternative funding models would you pursue other than relying predominantly on property tax levies to fund the maintaining and improving the parks?
We have to get creative on the way that we raise revenue, and we can't rely solely on property taxes, which are 80% of the park board's budget. So, the first thing I want to do is go to other government agencies, namely the Met Council, the county, the state, the city. All of them need to do their part and need to understand the contributions that the Minneapolis Park Board makes, not only to this municipality, but to the metro and to the state and the larger region. So we need to find a way to get money from them first. Secondly, I would like to explore how we can get creative revenue sources from the programming that we offer in parks. So, I mean, I was talking to some youth sports advocates the other day. They were telling me, hey, look, why can't we have a concession stand and sell hot dogs? And, maybe the park board could take a fee of that. That sounds pretty fun. If I'm walking around town and I see a softball game going on, I might stop by to get a hot dog. And guess what? That's great. It's going towards a good cause. So we need to get smart and creative and find those partnerships that allow us to take advantage of the parks and the spaces that are producing so much for us.
Candidate Musich.
Not the best time to take a drink of water. So this is something that the current board has been working on actually quite a bit. So as for those of you that were here for the at-large forum heard, we've identified 12 new funding sources for the park board in our tenure on the board. We're looking at a number of new ones for those of you that are excited about supporting the park board via philanthropic gifts. There is an endowment now through the Minneapolis Parks Foundation that is a great vehicle for that, and it will, over time, provide a large funding stream for the park board to be able to take care of our natural areas, our decaying historic infrastructure built by the WPA, like stairs at Minnehaha Falls, and it will also allow us to be able to leverage generous people that have money to give. We're also looking at things like concession stands in our athletic facilities, and perhaps also allowing for our local businesses to advertise on fencing like they do all over the suburbs. I have more, but I can't. I'm done.
Candidate Miller.
I'll look forward to being part of this as I've spent some significant time working with elected officials and trying to move things along, trying to make projects happen, and I'm excited to be trying to do that here as well. It's a real issue when you have 80% of the property owners, 80% of the budget property owners tax, and the operations. Operations are difficult dollars to get new money for, and a lot of the issues that we feel on a very personal level about our particular park are tied to operation dollars. So we'll have to figure out how to improve on that.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Property taxes are a regressive tax, plain and simple. It is great that we have this dedicated funding source that can largely be counted on to keep what we have going, but we do have to look at alternative ways. I encourage anyone to look at my website, danengelhardt.org, and look at the depth of endorsements I have from elected officials. I've been at MAPE for 14 years. I'm working with state government and all levels of government. We have to look at the reality that just like Minnesota puts more into the federal government than we get back, that's the same for Minneapolis into the state. And there's a real animosity at the Capitol about Minneapolis and about our city. We don't get bonding money, and the local government aid formula needs to change. So if we can work with what's evident by my endorsements to change that, to look at, can we change the local government aid formula for zoned units perhaps? That's an idea that's come across. The Park Board has a role with the Board of Investment and Taxation and the City Council to look at that. Lastly, events and things like more canoe parking spaces that people are willing to pay for. I always forget and I never get one, so thanks.
Candidate Cernak.
All right, first and foremost, nobody wants like corporate logos in the park, but at the same time, I think we kind of need to look for corporate sponsorships for things that we do in the park, possibly like seeing like what they have available for funding and what we can do with those parks. And we also have, there's also like a lot of legacy money for clean water, and I think we really need to look into that, like go into those like resources and see if there's any money available to kind of clean up the waterways within our lake. And then, I think there's an opportunity to do more food truck stuff. Like once, like the local restaurants closed down at Minneapolis Falls, there could be a food truck down there on the days when it's like 70 and 60, but it's, still like not as high traffic as it would be for the food areas. Thank you.
Candidate Moran.
Yeah, so I am proud to be endorsed from elected officials at the city, county, and state, and so I am looking forward to working collaboratively on a multi-jurisdictional approach with them. As my colleagues here were saying, concession stands and advertising, that's something that I would also be looking forward to support. And then I know that in conversations with other commissioners, there has been discussions about parkways and the possibility of them being closed for events, and I think that that would be beautiful. And also speaking with other organizations, skate parks, so like that idea of events and also making sure that we're bringing organizations, so competitions, that would be something beautiful to have at the parks. And then also looking at other cities and what they're doing. I think that the parks has an opportunity to be creative ways of bringing folks together to the parks. So I will be excited to look into that. Thank you.
We're now going to move on to land back and cultural heritage. This will go first to candidate Musich. Land acknowledgements that celebrate and honor the indigenous people and nations that initially inhabited the land that is now the Minneapolis Parks are a starting point for addressing historical, social, and racial injustices. As a commissioner, what, if anything, will you do to continue returning Minneapolis parkland back to management by indigenous nations and people?
Thank you for that question. So, in my time on the Park Board, we've done a number of things to start healing the relationship between the descendants of Eastern settlers and the people that called this place home before they arrived. Part of that work has been the Indigenous Action Plan that this current board adopted, which said, we're not going to sit around and work on a land acknowledgement statement if what community really wants from us is collaboration around how we can more authentically acknowledge the people that were here before so many of our ancestors were. So that's been very rewarding, and that we've had very frank conversations together. And we heard writing a land acknowledgement is not what we are looking for. We really want more meaningful collaboration. That's happening in a very intense way around the redevelopment of the Hiawatha Golf Course, in that we are trying to find ways to incorporate traditional gardens that would allow for the harvesting of plants that are very meaningful to people of Dakota descent. So that's just one
Thank
example
you.
of how we're trying to do that.
Candidate Moran.
Yeah, thank you for this question. Restoration of the land is super important, and specifically because we are facing climate change, it's so important that we are working together with our indigenous relatives and our indigenous communities, and more than anything for them to also be alongside working with us. I don't see the work. It has to be mutual and it has to be collaborative. In my time, I've been working alongside the Friends of Lake Hiawatha, and so through that, I have seen that it's important that we focus on land restoration, so having gardens, and that we are, so for example, planting medicine garden, and for lakes to ultimately, hopefully get to what land was, for there to be wild rice and water, and so I think that going back to those ways would be beautiful. And so ultimately, I look collaborating with our indigenous relatives and organizations.
Candidate Deshpande.
The first thing I really want to do is investigate when and where we can incorporate indigenous voices more closely in the planning process of our parks. And so I've seen that really up close and personal in East Phillips with the East Phillips Open Space Plan, where the Park Board has been working with an Indigenous liaison to think through exactly how the East Phillips Park plus the Cedar Field Park can more properly incorporate Native aspects, but then also serve the community better. And the work I've seen there is phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and it's moving, and it's touching, because it's bringing a community that's been neglected back into their own homes. And moreover, that liaison in particular is a wonderful person who's from East Phillips. She lives there. She knows the people. She knows what they need. And so that's the type of work that I want to double down on and enforce all over Minneapolis.
Candidate Miller.
In Northeast, we have the Pioneer statue in, it's next to the Boom Island. And that has been an issue starting out after George Floyd's murder. People feeling harm of that statue. And it's something in District 1 that I can reach out to and say that the community, the St. Anthony West community, has studied for 5 years trying to move and figure out a plan to remove that statue and remove it in a way that people are in agreement to it, and it can be removed with dollars that are found. So that is my experience on bringing back something that the indigenous community has requested in my district.
Candidate Cernak.
I very much look forward to working with the indigenous leaders of the community in restoring the natural of our parks, trying to move away from the 1950s, more deep woods if possible, more relationships with animals. I play softball over in Brackett Park, and for one summer a coyote lived by us, and we saw him every single game, and it was super cool. He would wander out of the woods, we just oh, there he is, and we kind of refer to ourselves as Coyote Ball. So I really look forward to working with our indigenous community and seeing what we can do to really make nature a bigger part of our parks. Thank you.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Yeah, look at my website again. Land back is on there, and some people have asked questions. What does that mean? What specific land are you giving back? The concept of land ownership is pretty foreign to our Native relatives, right? Owning land. Should we own land? That said, Grand Portage State Park is a state park, but it's tribal land. It's their land, and it's managed by, or not managed, but park staff work at it and get paid through the state system. So that's a bit of a model. Awanmi's great. We got to get rid of that statue that Dan Miller talked about, like right away, there's, studies and it takes this long and all this stuff, like how can we, when things are causing harm, so land back is bigger than the land itself. It's about things that people have to look at. I live in the Holland neighborhood in Northeast Minneapolis, and the local park's Jackson Square Park. It's on Jackson Street, but that's after Andrew Jackson. That guy did a lot of harm and genocide. And we had a concentration camp at Fort Snelling here. We have to address those things head on, rename things, and look at what we can do about the land itself. Thanks.
Okay, this next round is going to be a lightning round. We're going to give everyone 15 seconds to answer one question. So timers, get ready to just hold the stop card up in 15 seconds. Name one way you would involve youth in your planning and decisions. So 15-second quick answer, and we're going to start with candidate Deshpande.
Talking to kids at schools.
Candidate Moran.
Involving them in the planning process.
Candidate Miller.
Listen.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Spending meaningful time with them, developing relationships. That's how you find out what they want and need. Thanks.
Candidate Musich.
Listen to the kids about what's important to them and respond.
And candidate Cernak.
Youth are the future. We need to find leaders from our community.
Good job, you guys. That's great. We've got a bunch of questions from the audience, so thank you guys for submitting those. What, if anything, will you do to support the Como Creek concept and ensure it is accessible? So we're going to start with candidate Deshpande.
I don't know enough about the Como Creek concept. I'd like to learn more. Obviously, I think it's going to come down to planning process. We have a lot of advisory committees that are going to be able to give us insights to make the park accessible, but I need to learn more, quite frankly.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Yeah, I mean, our southeast neighborhoods in District 1 have some of the deepest inequities. When you hear that 10-minute or 6-block walk, that's not being met there. Van Cleve's the only park in that area, so we have to look at every possible opportunity to meet the promise of the park boards in our southeast neighborhoods in District 1. So, I mean, I support it in concept. I share it, Kadar. I need to learn more about that. What I've heard mostly about is the Tuttle School site and making sure that that's green space. So, but we have to just address those inequities in our southeast neighborhoods in District 1 head on. Thanks.
Candidate Miller.
I'm not aware of the Como Creek project. However, the Grand Rounds is coming, and it's coming to southeast Como, and look forward to that. That's coming soon.
Candidate Moran.
Yeah, I also do not have enough knowledge, but thank you, Dan, for the knowledge that you provided today. I look forward to learning more and also talking to neighbors that submitted the question as well after the forum. Thank you.
Candidate Cernak.
What district is the Como Creek project in?
It says districts 1, 3, and 5 on here, so.
It's in District 1.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with the project at all. It's probably good to have more parks over there.
and candidate Musich.
This is not something in my district, and I'm unfamiliar with it, so I can't speak to whether or not it's something that I can support at this time.
Okay, you can talk to them after the thing. So the next question is a public safety question. Are the current responsibilities of the park police the best to keep us safe in our parks, and should the relationship with MPD be reconsidered? The first person to answer this will be candidate Miller.
To my knowledge, the parks are doing just fine, and I think there's always room for improvement. That is a constant process, but we're coming out of COVID, and we're coming out of the pandemic. We're 5 years out of it. We're healing, and we need to continue to heal and grow.
Candidate Moran.
Yes, so I support fully funding a comprehensive public safety system that ensures that our parks are welcoming for all. This includes street reach programs, working with multi-jurisdictional partners, and expanding opportunities for youth, because investing in our youth is investing in public safety. And then I look forward to collaborating with the community's connections and violence prevention department to see where the gaps are and implemented improvements. So those are two programs that, if elected, I would like to continue expanding. As a youth worker, I think that Park Police needs to do more training. My interactions with our young people and Park Police hasn't been the most, they haven't been the most friendly, and so making sure that our Park Police has training on how to engage with our community, engage with our young people, engage with just anybody that accesses our parks.
Candidate Deshpande.
I'm always looking for alternatives to policing first, and I feel like in District 3 in particular, there are a lot of opportunities to be able to create safety without necessarily having an armed presence. That said, there are going to be instances where we do need police, and I see that particularly at PV Park, Stewart Field Park, sometimes East Phillips Park. And people need to feel safe, kids need to feel safe, and so ultimately what I want to see is more uniformed presence that isn't necessarily armed, and then when needed, bring in Park Police for more extreme situations.
Candidate Musich.
I believe the current responsibilities of the Park Police are appropriate. We, at one point, did eliminate our relationship with MPD, and that had serious implications for our ability to host events. We were unable to staff the number of events that we previously held within the parks, and so many community groups that previously would have celebrated together in the parks had to be told, no, I'm sorry, we can't support what you would like to do here, because we just don't have enough staff. I'm very proud of the work that the Street Reach team and our violence interrupters do to help diffuse situations that could become something explosive that would require the police to show up. They do an excellent job of helping intervene and have really thoughtful conversations with people and get them the support and services that they need to be safe and healthy here in our city. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Candidate Cernak.
I think there is a real opportunity to rework the Minneapolis Park Police. I think that they really need to get out of their cars more, maybe like get more on bikes. In all the years I've lived in this city, I've walked down to the river via Minnehaha Falls many times, and I've never seen a cop on a bike there once. Like, I'm just like in kind of awe that it's like, oh, like I've never been stabbed along this park, even though there's like no police presence down there whatsoever. I feel that like they really need to get out of their cars more, like interact with the community and be a better part of the community. Thank you.
Candidate Engelhardt.
I think it's important for all entities that don't feel comfortable working with MPD to feel strong in that decision. MPD has serious work to do to reform it, and the current mayor is doing nothing to address that. So that said, you know, police don't solve crime, and they respond to it after it's happened. We need an armed response to the gun crisis we have in this country. So there is a need there. That said, we can really model and show and lead by example with the Park Police, and if we want to call them rangers or, you know, rename or rebrand, whatever. That said, that, you know, so we need to hire the best and the most equitable and ones that will develop relationships and that sort of thing. And we have to have zero tolerance for excessive force, explicit bias, be culturally competent, and be coaching on that, be training on that, and be holding them accountable, and discipline up to and including termination for any violations of excessive force and explicit bias. It can be done. The collective bargaining agreement is not a hindrance to that. I'm a labor expert. Thank you.
Thank you. What is your position on the proposed redevelopment of Hiawatha Golf Course? What informs this opinion, specifically the data you used to make this decision? And we will start with candidate Deshpande.
I'm in favor of the 9-hole plan that's been worked on for a very long time. I don't come to that conclusion lightly. I think golf is important. I think the history of black golfers in particular is really important. And I don't want to see that heritage and that legacy lost. So making sure that we emphasize golf activities and youth engagement at the site is important. That said, I also do want to see how we can restore the lands, and some of the concept plans that came out maybe a month ago are really exciting. I've been in touch with the Friends of Lake Hiawatha, and I look forward to seeing that plan through.
Okay, and FYI, we're not taking any more audience questions. So candidate Cernak, you're next.
All right. I am not in support of the redevelopment of the Hiawatha Golf Course. I think it's a really terrible plan. I think that nobody is going to be able to eat any of the food that comes out of that retention pond. Like, I 100% cannot see anyone eating anything out of that anaerobic, like, swamp. And that being said, like, money is going to need to be, like, raised to destroy this golf course. On the flip side, there's money available to redesign the golf course from private sources and make it into a really, really beautiful, nice course. And, like, the water is not that big of a situation with that course. Thank you.
Candidate Moran.
Thank you for this question and all the community efforts that got us to here. I do support the passing of the Hiawatha Master Plan, and if elected, I look forward to voting on a plan that is most responsive to the ecological needs, historical contributions, and also for a future generation. With the increase of climate change, we need to take meaningful action to maintain the land. And through my time with the Friends of Lake Hiawatha, I've seen firsthand the effects of flooding and how it has impacted surrounding homes. We must acknowledge when the land is protesting. And as we take steps to address this, we also celebrate the legacy of Black golfers, as this was one of the few recreational spaces that challenged racial discrimination. And so these are not competing issues. We can do them both.
Candidate Engelhardt.
I support the plan that was passed. I don't think we should use the word master for plans, but that's what it's called. That we just had a question about our natural areas and our natural environment. That Minnehaha Creek goes into our Mississippi River, and we have to do everything we can to protect our clean, fresh water and respect our ecosystems. Yes, there is a legacy black golf course there, and what can we do to have signage and different things to highlight the legacy of black golf in that particular golf course in that particular area. That said, there's homeowners that are getting hit themselves in their body in their home, and they can't go outside, and it's an ecological problem. That permit that allows the pumping could be pulled, and it should be pulled. It's a variance. It's an illegal permit, basically. I mean, it's not illegal because of the variance. So I support the plan, and let's make it happen. Candidate
Musich.
This issue has consumed basically my entire time on the park board. I know it very, very well. I could get super into the weeds on this with all of you, as Susan Dew in the back could tell you. It's incredibly important for us to adapt our land use to be able to withstand the climate that is not only our climate now, but our climate future. We are seeing more intense storms that produce more rain that are likely going to flood this space. It is not flooded to the degree that it did in 2014 since that time, but it has flooded partially, and it has been very close to flooding extensively, but we got lucky and it dried out. So we do need to adapt. We need to implement the long-range vision plan for this site. I'm very excited to see what the concepts that are being brought forward. I'm excited to see what the various special interest group focus sessions bring forward to help support the indigenous history of this space, the African American golf history of this space, and the future of how people experience golf on the south side.
Candidate Miller.
So I've been mostly laser focused on northeast and southeast and the north side. So I've known about the Hiawatha Plan for a long time, and I think what I saw in the August release of 3 plans was pretty good, was pretty cool, and it showed the amount of engagement that our staff, I should say, that park board staff has done to come up with some ideas to try to resolve both environmental issues and historical issues. And I'm pretty impressed with it and hope to see it move on. Yeah.
Okay, we've got one last question, and then we're going to go to closing statements. So your final question is, what specific actions will you take to restore relations between park workers and administrative staff and strengthen trust and collaboration between Park Board and its employees? So we will start with candidate Cernak.
Well, I think that the easiest answer there is that if there's new leadership in District 5, relations with the union will be better because the current stuff is not doing super great, and she was not endorsed by the union, and they kind of felt like that at the city convention as well. So I think that any new leadership in District 5 will have better relationships with the union. Thank you.
Candidate Musich.
I think we need to have better communication with our staff around what decisions are being made and why. We also need to invest in spaces that show that we respect them. I'm very excited to see that we're finally moving forward with building a new service center space for everyone that's working out at the Hiawatha Service Center. It's a space that I toured when I first joined the board, and I was so horrified by the conditions that we expected people to work in and take their breaks in, and the restrooms that we expected them to use, that I lobbied my colleagues to create a fund so that we could start stockpiling monies to make renovations there. We're finally building out that building. I'm thrilled to see that moving forward. We need to be listening to our partners and our bargaining units about what we can be doing to help support them policy-wise, because that's largely what the Park Board commissioners can do, is pass policy. That's why Commissioner Benny and I worked on putting in place agreements that allow us to ensure that union labor will actually be used on large projects that cover multiple year spans, instead of just saying that they must follow the prevailing wage rules.
Candidate Miller.
From my experience in working in parks, I already have relationships with park staff and elected leaders. I'm committed to working with park unions and the community. I want to seek out and lift up voices that may feel overlooked. Growing up on the Iron Range, my community survived many layoffs and strikes. In today's hard times, we can move forward together with collaboration and hope.
Candidate Moran.
I want to start by thanking our park workers for keeping top of the nation. As a union member and as someone that comes from a working class family, I understand the importance of having a workplace that is truly supportive of workers and unions. I'm proud to be the only labor-endorsed candidate in District 5, and including La Yuna, that represents our hardworking park workers. And where park workers went on a historic strike to demand for better wages and better working conditions, the incumbent delayed mediation and engaged in union-busting tactics that forced workers, including youth workers, to cross the picket line. I stood by our park workers, and I will continue to stand by them. And as your future commissioner, I'm committed to repairing relationships with our workers and help create a labor committee and have ongoing conversations. Thank you.
Candidate Engelhardt.
I absolutely love this question. When I win, I am committed right away in January to start a labor committee. I am committed to chair that committee and to have workers on it. Commissioner Olson talked about this earlier. There's been a message that's been shared over decades from management and attorneys that represent the Park Board that you cannot be engaged in anything labor relations other than approving the contract yes or no. That's ridiculous, it's wrong, and it has to change, and I'm committed to change it with those concrete steps of starting, chairing that labor committee with workers on it, and having commissioners paying attention, ideally being at bargaining, not as a member of the bargaining team, but paying attention and knowing it. 21 days into the 22-day strike, we had commissioners saying they didn't know enough about the contract. We had the incumbent who's not running again parroting management anti-union talking points. And I'm also doing what I'm doing right now, working as hard as I can to get elected and to get our DFL and labor endorsed slate elected. We need a pro-labor park board. We can't have the #1 park system in the nation with the level of disrespect that happened last summer during that 22-day long strike. Let's go.
Candidate Deshpande.
Our parks are thriving because of the workers, so we really need to listen to them and support them. And so the first thing that I want to focus on is being proactive in addressing concerns. I'm going to have an open door policy with all of the labor unions, and I really want to watch them on the job too. I want to see their day-to-day and know what they know, because they're closest to the work and they know what they need, and ultimately their constituents too. That's the only way that we're going to get our parks solid and stable and keep them that way. Commissioners need to know also. I'm in a union household myself, and so this is something that's really important to me. And having an open door policy, listening to the unions, listening to all of the workers is going to be the first and foremost thing on my mind.
Thank you. We are now going to move to our closing statements. The candidates will each have 30 seconds for these closing statements, and we're going to go the opposite of what we did at the beginning, and we're going to start at the end of the table and go in reverse alphabetical order. So we're going to start with candidate Musich and move this way. So candidate Musich.
Thank you. It's been lovely having this opportunity to share how I've served the voters of the 5th District with all of you this evening, as well as the folks online. I'm very, very committed to this work. I do this on top of my day job. It's a huge lift, but I'm passionate about it, and I really would love to continue to serve as your representative on the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. Thank you.
Candidate Moore.
Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to the League of Women Voters and for making voting a tradition, for having us here. I think the most thing that makes me excited for stepping in this role is the community engagement and connecting with neighbors on building a better park system for all. As a youth worker, I hope to work with our young people to make sure that the parks are truly inclusive for our young ones, our elders, and so please make sure to have a plan to vote, and I hope to get your support. Thank you.
Candidate Miller. Go ahead. Candidate Miller.
My name is Dan Miller, and I'm seeking your support for Park Board District 1. I've taught 1,000 kids to ride bike over the past 10 years in our schools. Together we explore our parks and beloved river. I didn't have a neighborhood park growing up, and I believe the parks must play a central role in providing opportunities for kids. I want to seek out voices that are overlooked. My name is Dan Miller. It's Miller time.
Candidate Engelhardt.
Engelhardt, yes, vote Engelhardt. I'm asking for your support. My name's on the ballot, and I'll be elected in there on the park board. But this is about us. This is about our community. This is about our local parks and our programming that is what we absolutely need in this long political emergency we're faced with. We need to be able to connect with our neighbors. We need to be able to get out and experience the sun. I don't get much sun in my yard, so I got to go to a park for that. So I'm committed to treating this like an organizer and pushing people, saying, you know, you want to work on a specific issue? Great. Like, we're going to need a movement to make that happen. And I can work with all levels of government as evidenced by my endorsements. Thanks.
Candidate Deshpande.
I spend a lot of time listening to people and listening to them in the language that they speak. Ultimately, that's how I learn, and that's how I'm going to serve. And there's no greater honor as an elected official than serving your constituents. That's what's going to make our parks great. And that's also what's going to prevent us from decaying in an era of political discord. I'm going to be listening, I'm going to be on the ground, and I've been doing it for years. I look forward to serving the people of District 3.
Fiscal responsibility is very important for the community to be safe and healthy. We really have to make sure that the park board lives within its budgets and doesn't continuously come to homeowners like looking for more tax revenue. I think that's really important. Obviously, we really need to concentrate on clean water and youth programs, both jobs and works for our students or for our young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And on behalf of the co-sponsors, I want to thank the candidates for being part of the democratic process and running for office and for being willing to serve our community. We hope that this forum has helped the voters in Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Districts 1, 3, and 5 make an informed decision with regard to the November 4th election. Remember, we use ranked choice voting for this election, where you vote for candidates in order of your preference, allowing you to rank your vote first, second, and third choice. This method can allow your vote to count to another candidate if your favorite candidate loses. or is eliminated. And we have Fair Vote Minnesota back here at the back of the room if you want to ask them any questions. We also want to thank you, the audience, for your participation in this forum and democratic process, those of you online as well, and to challenge you to think about what 3 things you can do now to further advance civic dialogue about the issues and encourage participation in this important election. Nonpartisan information about the candidates and about voting is available at vote411.org. Early voting has begun and it ends on Monday, November 4th. The video of this recording will be available unedited for viewing on the League of Women Voters Minneapolis website, lwvmpls.org. Editing of this video is authorized only for official media reporting. Footage cannot be used in campaign publicity or other partisan footage. The recording is the property of the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis. Please vote. Your vote is your voice and your power. Thank you and have a good evening. And at this point, let us show our appreciation to the candidates. Good job, you guys. Nice job, everyone.